Most business owners leave money on the table when they sell. Sometimes it's a few thousand, but sometimes it can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And why? So in this video, I'm going to show you the 5 biggest mistakes sellers make when they're selling their business. I'll show you why it's costing them money and how you can avoid those mistakes and, well, not cost yourself a whole lot of money. Selling a business can be stressful and it can get to business owners. Now look, I've been a business broker for over 20 years. I've sold over $100 million worth of businesses. And these 5 mistakes, these 5 common mistakes I see time and time again. So the first mistake is in the financials. The financials must be clean, simple, and uncluttered. It's no point in having 2 or 3 entities in the set of financials and trying to pull out the entity that you're selling. Oh, that doesn't apply. That's to this business over there, and that doesn't apply. That just confuses buyers, muddies the waters, and creates a problem trying to present those accounts in the best way possible. You need to have a look at those accounts. What's in there? Recast your accounts. Talk to your business broker, talk to your accountant, and get those accounts recast to remove those things that shouldn't be there. I mean, a good example is I was looking at a business not so long ago, and I looked at his accounts, and he had over $90,000 in motor vehicle expenses. Now, it was a small import business, no reason to have that sort of expense. I said, what's going on? He goes, oh, I've got a race car that I play with on the weekends, and those are the expenses for the race car because we write them off to marketing. Now that's fine, perfectly legitimate, but an incoming buyer who doesn't have a race car, he's going to be able to put, or she's going to be able to put that $90,000 as profit, so they will see the business in a more profitable light if you recast those accounts, remove those discretionary expenses, if you like, the expenses that don't really apply to the business. So you need to have a chat to your accountant. I know business owners tell me, I've got a great accountant, I don't pay very much tax, and that's perfectly fine. That's what a good accountant should do. But the flip side of that is when you come to sell the business, you need to show it in the most profitable light possible. So go back to your accountant. How do we recast these accounts? How do we present these accounts in a way that shows the business in the best possible light? One of the things that sellers don't realize is when they do find a buyer, the buyer goes, yes, I will buy your business. They then go to their bank to get finance to pay for the business, and they use the seller's accounts to help them get finance. The bank says to the buyer, great, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer, I see you're buying this business, but how are you going to pay the loan back? And so they present the accounts from the seller. So those accounts, again, must be clean, tidy, and show the maximum profit the business can make. That way, the buyer gets finance, the bank lends the money, and obviously the seller sells the business and gets to pocket it. You need to have a plan for the earnings of the business. Buyers are buying future maintainable earnings. So if you're project-based, seasonal, or have that lumpy kind of revenue, you need to try and show a way to even that out and show buyers that when they step into the business, that revenue will continue, that those sales will continue, and obviously the profits will continue. Because remember, that's what a buyer's looking for. They love the history is great, but they're looking at it from their point of view. What happens after I buy this business looking forward? So that's when your budgets, and that's when you remove that lumpy kind of history, if you like, and show the business with good future maintainable earnings. And when it comes to earnings, when it comes to the profit, you don't need to talk about business potential. Too many business owners say to me, oh, my business has great potential, and a buyer will see that potential and pay so much more for my business because look at all this potential. But the issue is that potential will make a buyer want to buy the business, but they're certainly not going to pay any more for it. So if your business has obvious potential, realize that potential, make those improvements, put the profit on the bottom line, and then you can sell the business for more money. I mean, if the business needs a new website, produce a new website. If it needs a bit of marketing, do the marketing. But realize that potential, and that shows the buyer the true value of the business. You'll make some more money. The money will go on the bottom line, like I've said, and people will pay more for the business because of it. Timing matters more than most people think when they sell a business. Too often, a seller wakes up in the morning and goes, oh, I've had enough, I'm going to sell the business. But getting the timing right means maximum value for the business. Now, what sort of timing am I talking about? Well, part of it's the market, sure. It's always good to sell when there's more buyers in the market than there is sellers, obviously. It becomes a seller's market then, and buyers will compete for the business and you will get a better price for it through that competition. But markets go up and down. Markets can be a bit lumpy as well. So choosing your time in the market is not as critical as choosing the timing on the business cycle. That's far more important. What do I mean by that? So that timing I'm talking about, that relates to the business itself. Now you need to look at your business, and the best time to sell your business is just before it peaks. If everything is tracking upwards, if revenue's going up, profit's going up, that's the time you sell your business. Because buyers will look at it, they will look at the business, what it's doing now, they will see that growth being predicted, they'll see the growth being realised, and they'll want to buy it. Conversely, the worst time to do it is when it's flat or falling. If a business is flat, then it's not keeping up with inflation, it's actually going backwards, and that's not a good time to sell a business. A buyer's going to look at that business and go, well, if the person who's owned it for such a long period of time can't arrest that backward slide, then how am I supposed to be able to do it? So they'll penalise you either on price or they'll just walk away entirely and not buy it. So have a look at your business, have a look at your budgets, your predicted cash flows, your predicted profit flows, and time it before the business reaches its peak. By tracking those key performance indicators both in your business and in the market, you'll get the perfect situation where you're in a seller's market, your business is tracking upwards, you'll get buyers competing for your business, you'll get multiple offers, and you'll walk away with the best price that you can get for your business. Many owners I talk to think their business is worth more than what the business actually is. They're heavily embedded in the business, so they look at it from the inside out and they think, oh, it's so good that buyers will pay so much money just to buy my business. But what they don't understand is how businesses sit in the market, how they compare to other businesses, but more importantly, what buyers are actually looking for in a business. Now, what buyers are looking for, that will dictate the value of the business, as will the market that the business is being sold in. Let me explain. So businesses are valued on the profit they're generating. Everybody knows that. So what happens is we look at the accounts, and back to recasting the accounts from earlier, we take that profit value and we go, what will someone pay to do this and earn that? And the simple way to find that out is to have a look at past sales statistics. So a good broker will go back into past sales. They will find comparable businesses, 3, 4, 5 comparable businesses, and they'll position the business they're valuing within those statistics. So if the last 5 businesses have sold for, I don't know, 3 times the profit, then the chances are that this business will sell for 3 times the profit as well. Now, it has to be a pretty good business to sell outside those averages, and sometimes they do, sure. I mean, there's an old saying, isn't there? There's always an idiot out there for every business, it's just a matter of finding it. But that's not a reliable strategy, so you need to price the business within the market. So you then have a look at the business and go, well, we've looked at statistics, we've arrived at an average, but is this business better than average? What does it have that other businesses don't have? Now that might be recurring income, that might be regular customers, it might be exclusive products or lines, it might be a proprietary system they have, so something that can't be easily replicated in other businesses. Now buyers will pay a premium for that on top of that average. So we need to examine the business based on averages, and then we need to examine the business individually. But we don't value a business by going, yeah, look, I need to buy a batch, I want to buy a new car, I've got some school fees and I've got a few other things, so it's bound to be worth X amount of dollars. That's not how business valuation works, and it's certainly not a good strategy for business valuation. Of course, if you do use that as a business valuation strategy, and believe me, some sellers do, what happens is the business just sits and it stays there and it stays in the market. And 8 months, a year later, buyers look at it and they go, how long's it been on the market? You go, oh, it's been a while. The first question they ask is not what's great about the business, it's what's wrong with the business. So by pricing it correctly in the market, at the premium end of the market, if it deserves that, but by doing that, you reduce time on the market, you sell it quickly and you get full value. The longer it sits, the less likely you're going to get a premium price for your business. So be prepared, value it correctly, pitch it at the right place in the market. A common and overlooked mistake is not addressing legal matters, not addressing contracts early in the piece, being prepared. So let's look at a few examples. We've got a building lease in most businesses. Does the landlord know the business is for sale? How long is the lease term? Is he happy to assign that lease? And on what terms and conditions will that landlord assign that lease to the new buyer? Remember, your buyer can't buy the business. Well, in some cases they can because they can relocate it, but in most cases the business needs to stay where it is. So the buyer needs to have a lease on the premises. So addressing those concerns with the landlords early, understanding what the landlord wants, it's an important part of the prep process. Then you need to look at supplier agreements. Now, supplier agreements either from the people that you buy product from or the supplier agreements that you have to sell product to. Are they transferable? Is there a clause in the contracts, those supplier agreements, allowing you to transfer those contracts? If there isn't, you're going to run into problems. Likewise, if you have a supplier agreement for an overseas supplier for exclusive products, what do they need to approve the buyer? Again, a buyer wants to buy the business, but they want to buy those supplier contracts. So if there's unusual termination clauses or short termination clauses, non-transferable clauses, or approval clauses, you need to know that up front and they need to be addressed. Don't leave that to the last minute. If a buyer's gone through the whole process, then contacts that supplier and the supplier goes, well, I don't know who you are. I didn't even know it was for sale. I'm not going to transfer that agreement. The buyer won't buy your business. The value of your business will fall apart and we'll be back to square one. So make sure you address those contract issues early. Talk to your lawyer, investigate those, take some advice from your lawyer and get yourself ready. Which leads us straight into employment agreements and staff concerns. Make sure you have employment agreements with all your staff. Make sure they're current, make sure they're up to date, and make sure they're signed. You also need to be wary of how you manage the staff during that process. Staff don't like uncertainty. They get nervous, they get scared, and what happens with nervous and scared staff? Well, one, the productivity falls away, and two, they look around for another job. I had an interesting case not so long ago where I was selling a business. Now the owner said, oh, look, my manager is brilliant. She knows the whole business really well. She thinks it's excellent. I'm going to tell her about the process really early, get her involved. Now that's fine, but it took us a while to find a buyer. It took us a few months. We found a buyer. We went through the process. But during that period, that staff member got worried about her future. Who is going to buy the business? Will they still want me? Will they fire me? Are they going to be nice people? So she had kids, she had a mortgage, and she needed the money. She needed to work. So she started looking around for a job. Now she was very well known in the industry. So one of the competition poached her and she left. Now, the buyer then didn't buy the business because they were told how important this person was to the business, and now that person is gone. So the poor old seller was left with one, no key staff member, and two, a sale that had failed. Now it took another few months to find a buyer, which we did, but it sold at a reduced price because we lost that staff member, and that staff member was key to the business. So be very careful with how you manage your staff, how you prepare your staff for the sale, and make sure you have those staff documentations up to date. No buyer will buy a business if they think it's going to collapse the moment you, the owner, walks out of the business. So you need to prepare the business by looking at the staff. You need to give the staff more responsibility. They need to be trained. You need to have processes. You need to have systems in place. So relationships are with the staff and relationships are with the business, not with the owner. Now, a buyer will look at that and they'll go, well, the goodwill sits in the business. It doesn't sit with the owner. That will make them more confident back to future maintainable earnings. It'll make them more confident that that business will carry on after they've taken over. So it's really important to make sure your systems, your processes, and your staff are all up to speed with running the business. Do a bit of a litmus test. Can you go away on holiday? If you woke up tomorrow and said, oh, look, I'm going to go away for 2 weeks, how would that work? How would the business and the staff cope? Now, if you can do that, if you can go away for 2 weeks and not get a phone call, not have a problem, and come back to a thriving business, not a hole in the ground where your business once was, then you have good systems, good processes in place, and that adds value to your business. That makes a buyer want to buy your business. So the takeaways are simple, aren't they? Prepare clean, simple financial records, easy to understand, showing the business in the best possible light. Time your sale based on the performance of the business less than on the performance of the market. Although if you can get them both, great. Understand how to value a business, understand what buyers value in a business, and it's not just what you think. Ensure that your staff and your operations are ready for a smooth transition to a new owner. So which of these mistakes do you think trips up most business owners? Or do you have others that you can think of? Comment below with your questions, with those mistakes, and I'll give you some quick tips on how to solve them. So all the stuff I've talked about here, it's in my latest book, How to Sell Your Business for Maximum Value and Minimum Stress. It's 232 pages of trade secrets, insider information, the tips and tricks brokers use but never want to tell you. Have you got your copy yet? Link in the description below. So I sold my business and made some classic mistakes. If you want to know that story, have a look at that video up there. I'll see you over there. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.